argument is that ultimately it is the Nokma who is the owner of the land. If landholding document is needed, then it has to be issued by the Nokma Council and not the ADC. Nokma Council came into existence about 10 years ago, somewhere 2004 or 5. And those of you know Professor Milton Sangma, he is the main, one of the inspiring figure behind this Nokma Council. What they are doing is helping out the Nokmas to be effective in the exercise of their duties. Nokmas have tremendous amount of powers which they are not aware. Quite a few, majority of the Nokmas are illiterate. And that is why a lot of smart Garos are fooling them and owning a lot of large chunks of land because Nokmas are illiterate. Just for a basket of rice or a bottle of wine, Nokmas are full. So therefore, this is where the Nokma Council is playing an important role in training the Nokmas, especially giving them information. Yes. Yeah, ADC issuing patta is illegal. Again, it's a senior advocate, a Garo advocate again, a Garo who was saying this. There is no law that empowers the district council to issue patta. Yes, they can collect revenue, but they have no right to issue patta. The Akhung belongs to the Machong or Mahari, that is the clan. If so, from where does the ADC get the right to issue patta? It's a controversial point which can be neatly rebutted by the ADC because 6th schedule gives the right to the ADC to administer land. But he is questioning if traditionally Akhung belongs to the clan and Nokma represent the clan, how can ADC issue patta?
This is not gone to the courts. This is so fundamental. It's not even to the High Court.
Yeah.
I think we can take between questions.
Yeah. I will answer that. That's an important question that I'll answer. I do not know. This is I think Professor Sangma, Milton Sangma making this point. Though we don't have a Mormon as a Gentia, but all the same. Kasi system is something a little different from Garo as far as the patta, the shift of land rights that is taking place. Let's see what it is. The ownership of land lies with the Nokma who represents a particular Mahari, particular clan. So the owner should have the authority or right to sell or to issue patta and not the DC, district council it is, or government. This is being done in Kasi and Jaintia Hills. The district council has nothing to do with selling and buying of land or collecting of taxes. Yeah, this point I have made already. That taking the to the yeah. Now on to ADC. Some are saying it is time that we get rid of 6th schedule. Meghalaya is already a state. Why do we need the 6th schedule? Now let's see what are the arguments. It has usurped the powers of traditional councils. I have talked enough about it. Second point, by encouraging patta system, it has contributed to the weakening of institution of Nokma and the Garo culture. I have made that point already. It has done very little to safeguard the social practices of Garo, that is the customary law. It is corrupt. No proper accounts of tax collection is maintained, like any other government institutions perhaps. But what are the arguments that we need it? There is a sentimental attachment. Over 60 years, it has been with us. ADC has been with us, so people want it. One of the reasons why people want it is a lot of money that comes to the ADC. Therefore, it's an institution, so many jobs, employment. So you are getting rid of ADC, so many jobs lost, so much money lost. Yes, the problem is administration, so cleanse the system. Last one, it has already codified the customary laws of the Garo people. Codification of customary law is a controversial topic. I'll not discuss at length. If you have later, we can discuss about it. So what the Garo ADC has done is it has started the process of collating the customary laws. A committee was set up somewhere in 2006-7. Milton Sangma, Professor Sangma was one of the important convener of the committee. They have done the work of putting the customary laws together, and the document is ready. It's in the public domain. It is also also submitted to the ADC, but I don't think it is passed yet, so it is not codified yet. So, but what they're saying is they've done the work. How do we handle this? Just a minute. I questioned the Nokmas, saying, see, so many people among you, Garo people, so many of them are happy with the individual land ownership. What do we do? How do you handle this? And this is one of the creative suggestions that was given by a Nokma. He says, yes, patta system is there, but that patta, let it not be an absolute patta. Let it not mean that the person proper gets the entire, total, absolute rights over land. What is meant in this paragraph is this. Let the patta be issued, let the individual proper family concerned have the land for itself, for himself, but in case the land has to be transferred, it has to be sold, let the individual concerned get permission from Nokma. So that is the point. So there is no absolute ownership. In case of transfer of land, let him get permission from Nokma, so that is controls. So it doesn't mean a person gets a piece of land and then sells it. That is what's happening in many cases. So that can be checked. So Nokma be consulted before land is transferred. So it is diluted, dilution of the patta system. What about cadastral survey in Garo Hills? Cadastral survey is not done, and most of Northeast it is not done. We know it. The last time it was done, it was in the plains areas, not the hill areas, plain areas of Garo Hills, 1936. The district council is in favor of cadastral survey, but is discouraged by unfavorable climate. Next point. The Nokma are not in favor. Unfavorable climate is Nokmas. Fear seems to be that the district council is trying to usurp their power over land. Ownership would go to the district council. That's the main fear. Nokmas can also benefit from cadastral survey. Right now, they are fooled by smart people about the measurement of land, what I mentioned to you earlier. They say this piece of land between that tree and this tree, the Nokma is not sure how much is the land, whether it is 1 acre, 2 acre, he doesn't know. So since cadastral survey is not done, no measurement is done, so he is fooled by smart people, I'm saying. So cadastral survey is done, it can be to the benefit of Nokma. Restriction on selling of land. Am I giving too much of information? I don't know. Am I boring you all? What is meant here is a particular Akhang belongs to a particular clan, and people of that particular clan can only own land in that particular clan. Another person from an outside clan cannot come to that land and own property. Restriction is, right now what is happening is aberration or flouting, violation of this particular tribal law. So non-Akhang people, people from outside come to an Akhang and own land. So restriction is there. Stop that. Yeah. That's it. Land ceiling. Makes sense. Already there was some sort of a law passed by in 1980s. It was an executive order which said only 50 bighas or 17 acres of land. That was the upper limit. But a person, Garo elder, says that is too much. 17 acres is too much. Now land-man ratio is decreased, so there is scarcity of land. Just 4 to 5 bighas of land is enough. That sort of have a ceiling. There is a lot of tension between the traditional and the modern political institutions, but there isn't a forum wherein this tension can be dealt. Can we have forum wherein dialogue can take place between the old and the new political institutions? That's a suggestion. The last slide, I have finished my work. All these things I have made. The suggestions that are given for effective administration, I have explained what is diluted concept of patta, what is cadastral survey I mentioned, restriction of transfer of land is explained already, imposition of land ceiling, and then forums of interaction between ADC and the Nokmas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melvil, for that very interesting power presentation. We have, I think I have the most difficult job here. We have around 30 minutes to have an open floor, and let's just start with the questions then.
Yeah, I have no information. I tried to get it. I tried to get it from the district council. No information available. Tried also from DC. DCs usually have. I in fact talked to a DC before coming. No, they don't have the
So
information.
nobody really knows how big the problem is on either side of the issue.
Well, let me put it this way, where we have what is known as plains land and the hills land. Nearly about 80 to 90% of the land is hills land for the Garos, where the Garos are staying. In the plains land, there is mixed population. You have Bangladeshi, some Muslims also settle down and so on. Now, in the plains area, that there is already cadastral survey done. Fine. Now, hill area. Akang land is the hill area. That is where the problem, most of the discussion was centered around that. So the information we have is very, what shall I say, limited from the interviews that I have. So maybe they were not forthcoming. I realized the land records department, they were a little, while I had a conversation with them, they were not really forthcoming with the information. Perhaps I have to use FRI to get the information. But I think quite a lot of land has already been has been shifted to the individual families. But I will not be able to give. Sorry for the.
It's a very basic clarification I'm seeking. If the pattas are by the autonomous district councils are being given on the basis of no objection certificates given by NOCMAs, and they are against this whole patta system, why don't they just stop issuing no objection certificates? I guess the question goes to perhaps decision making. Is it a decision, is there substantial pressure on the NOCMAs from the group, or are decisions regarding giving the NOCs a joint sort of decision?
Quite a lot of NOCMAs are not issuing the NOCs. Quite a lot of NOCMAs are not issuing. So that is the reality. Some of them are issuing because what I mentioned, they're illiterate, simple people. And that's why NOCMA Council is playing an important role in educating them and saying, no, you have huge responsibility to protect the Akang land. Don't issue the NOCs. So that is where the NOCMA Council is playing an important role in training them. One. Two, just a minute. It is not that NOCMA takes the decision. NOCMA, the man, proper represents the property of the woman. Wife is the real owner, if you have to say. Wife is the real owner. And wife is supported by her clan. So any land that has to go, the NOCMA has to consult the so-called wife's brothers in a way. It is, though matrilineal, it is patriarchal in a way. The men have to give consent. But a lot of time, NOCMA doesn't do that. NOCMA doesn't do that. She straight away issues NOC. Therefore, a lot of cases are in the court just now because NOCMA simply issued a NOC without consulting the larger group, which should be consulted.
I think I would like to add to that and probably seek comments from you as well, because I was going to ask you that there is obviously this controversy whether NOCMA is the owner or the custodian of the land, and actually whom does the land belong to. And there have been many court cases where the NOCMA of ABC has given the land to somebody as compensation, and it went into courts, first with the Garo District Council and then with the Guwahati High Court and then back to council, and it was established, I think the recent judgment was that indeed the decision was wrong and that the land is not owned by the NOCMA. So that kind of shows where the legal course is headed in that, and of course it's open to lots of changes. And another point which I wanted to mention was that you've mentioned this NOCMA Council, and the very fact that something like NOCMA Council has been set up, it also points probably to the fact that the ADCs have not been functioning as a representative body of the traditional system. So probably that also leads us, because I'm a political scientist, so I would also read into it that probably the ADCs have not performed their democratic representative role, which they were expected to or intended to by the 6th schedule.
Yeah, I agree with both your points, Kavita. Yeah.
That is related to this. As you said, Garos are matrilineal people, right? That is one of the things. and land so belongs to women. But Nokmas, ADC members, and the rest of the which are called Darbar and Meghalaya, they are all male bodies. Okay, so land has another feature which is very important, that women as a group are being deprived of their land rights, either through consent of the brothers and sometimes, and it is going to largely to husbands and brothers of the women, kind of. And there is a, so whole, which is a serious problem in rest of India if you see the land rights, because there are no precise records, but about less than 9% women own land in rest of India. And here where was the women's land rights were there in Garo Hills and Khasi Hills and Meghalaya, you find that that is also being turned into patriarchal system, very kind of with a very deliberate move and with the full consent of, or full half consent of the tribal people themselves. That is so. This is a very important feature that needs to be recognized and is as much a part of the environment and human system in creating an unequal society. Thank you so much. I wanted your views.
Yeah, I'll go backwards. You brought the gender aspect. Now, one of the implications of this Pata system is when the land is given as a permanent piece of property to a particular family, it is many cases it is registered in the name of the man. So that's very clear, getting away from the matrilineal system. But at least in the past, the land belonged to the woman. At least in de jure it belonged to, okay, de facto the men called the shots, fine, de jure it belonged to her. But now de jure, because registration is done in the name of the man. And I tried to get again the information from the land records department, tried to see the gender implications, couldn't get, but I'll follow that story. Very important to keep in mind, right?
May I have a question? May I have a question?
Yeah, sure, sir.
You know, I'm intrigued by all this, and other societies have also gone through this kind of experience. In British legal system, Sir Edward Coke said that customary laws are as sacrosanct as positive law. Finally, Albert Van Dicey said that positive law is higher, or parliamentary sovereignty is higher than customary law. Now, in Meghalaya, it seems to me that there is no clear balance of force on the side of the modern institutions. Traditional society is equally powerful. So perhaps it may be difficult to decide the balance of forces between the two.
This morning session.
Sir, could you please introduce yourself first?
My name is Ajit Mazumdar. I'm a faculty member, if you like, visiting faculty member of CPR for, I don't know, 30, 40 years. Now, ex-civil servant, former secretary planning. Now, this morning's session is about the Garo and Khasi tribal areas. We will be discussing Gujarat tribals later and Andhra in the third session. I think the fundamental points that have come up will occur in those cases also. These seem to be, to me, related problems. The question of tribal control and versus the governmental body is closely related to the problem of ownership as to who is the owner of the land. Is it the state, or is it the is the common tribal property? So that is a fundamental issue which I gather has been to some extent discussed by the Guwahati High Court. I don't know what the solutions are, but it's also a matter for the government, the state, to come to a decision. The state has the ultimate power. It can legislate. It can say, this is it. So apparently, they have not done so. Otherwise, why do we have this constant conflict. The other thing, broad thing is related to this is the question of private property. The common tribal property has its traditional support, and today we, generally speaking, are emotionally inclined towards protecting common ownership as distinct from capitalist private ownership. Now, this has gone on throughout the world, and common property is, in a sense, contradictory to private ownership, because without private ownership, you can't have the capitalist type of development. If it is going to remain common property, then there has to be communal development, community development. Now, I think it's now too late in the day to put the clock back. I remember in my time, we had a big problem about the paper mill in which I forget which part of Assam, in Nepal. And this was the problem. Who was to have the right and who was to benefit from the bamboo supplies? Who was to give the... Now, in the end, I think what was the decision then? Was it never decided? So, of course, we Indians have progressed through the years by never deciding anything. So it's possible that we will never come to a decision on any of these things. But I just want to put on the table the fact that what we're discussing is fairly fundamental things, not just whether a NOCMA has the right to give a no objection certificate. These are subsidiary things. The essentials are to come to a decision as to who owns the land and which body has the final authority, the district council or the chiefs. And if I may put it on the table, I think although one would like to feel that the customary laws, as you say, and the customary ownership and the customary control is community-wise, it's in some moral sense superior to private exploitative ownership. But I don't think we will be able to ever go back to that. And the tribes will dissolve, and private property will prevail, and private ownership. The bank loans is very peculiar. Why is it that the banks won't? Because if the bank can't give money unless they have collateral which is transferable. And if it is common Akhanj property, how can you give a bank loan against Akhanj property? So we're in deep waters here, we're in fundamentals, and I will be interested to know how these things have panned out in Gujarat, the paradise of capitalism, and in Andhra, the complete confusion like in the Indian system. So we'll go along with that and beyond.
Thank you, Professor Mazumdar. Now I think we could take some more questions for the other two panelists if somebody has... Yes, sir.